Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lifford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week, we give some tips on how to paint knotty pine paneling. That was so popular many years ago, but people are looking to kind of freshen things up and making the room a little lighter. We give some great tips if you're considering that. Also, treated wood or composite decking. When you're building that deck, we'll explore the pros and cons on that. Also, it's that time of the year to try to win the war over eliminating weeds. We've got some great tips without using some of the harsh chemicals. And we've got a simple toilet repair that we're going to guide a homeowner through. Joe, what about a simple solution?
Well, this time of year, a lot of people are gardening and they're using topsoil, and it's really important to sift out all the debris from topsoil before you use it in your garden. And I'm going to share a simple solution on how to do that really quickly and easily.
Oh, man, I always love the simple solutions. All right, let's get started. Right now, we're going to North Carolina. Georgia's on the line. Georgia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're glad to have you, and we want to help you out with your question. Tell us about your idea for the knotty pine paneling.
Okay. I am living in my home place where I grew up. The house is about 65 years old. The wood that the house was built with came off the family farm, but it is just making my house look so dated, and I want to attempt to paint the shellac knotty pine paneling. And I'm not really sure where to go from here.
All right. Well, it's something that I have done many, many times, and usually is a bit of a controversy with different members of the family saying, oh, don't paint that. It looks so nice. And others, no, it's too dark and dated. I want to do something about it. So we've had a lot of those type of scenarios over the years, but it can be painted, and it does make a significant difference. And thank you for sending the pictures there so that we can see exactly what you're dealing with. It's a fair amount of work, but if you do it right, it'll last a long, long time. And it starts out with, of course, preparing the surface, and you'll want to do some deglossing on it. So to use a solution to degloss it, there's a lot of citrus type of deglossers that are out there. So a little bit of elbow grease to get that started. And then it's always good to do some sanding in addition to that. Again, that kind of cuts that glossy look off of it and gives you a better surface for the paint to adhere to. And then next after that, Joe, it's so important. The next step is that primer that we recommend.
Yeah, exactly, Georgia. After sanding, and you don't want to sand off the shellac. You're just knocking it. In fact, I would try to leave on as much shellac as possible because that's helping to seal the wood and the knots because you don't want the knots bleeding through. But a light sanding with maybe like 120 grit sandpaper, then wipe off the sanding dust and get it as clean as you can, and then prime. And I would put 2 coats of primer. 1 coat of primer, especially a really good primer, will hide most most defects or most staining on the wall. But I would go with 2, let it dry, sand it lightly, wipe off the sanding dust, and put a 2nd coat of primer. And then you can go back with a paint. And any good interior latex paint you can go right over it with. And you probably will have to, because it's pine paneling, you'll probably have to put it on. You can put it on with a roller and then smooth it out with a brush and use the brush to get into all the areas that the roller doesn't reach. But you could spray it too. That'd be another way to do it. But I think a roller and then coming back with a brush would probably give you the best result.
With a primer, do you have a special one that you would like to recommend?
I would think you'd need at least a 3/8 inch nap roller because you wanted to get it in there into some of the crevices and then spread it out with the paint brush. You might not even need to put any paint on the brush at that point. And you will be putting 2 coats of paint as well. So, as long as you get most of it covered as much as you can with the 1st coat, then the 2nd coat will go on really quickly and easily. And I suspect, Georgia, you can be lightening the color, right? You can put up a lighter color paint. Is that true?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Good. Well, that'll help a lot.
What about the primer you recommend on that, Joe, that bonding primer from Zinsser?
Yeah, they make a restoration primer, which is probably the best primer. I'm not sure you need to go that expensive and that high quality because you're not really. I suspect these knots are probably sealed, but if you want to, they make something called a restoration primer, which is meant to go over like really badly stained, water stained ceilings. And that stuff's amazing. I've used it after trying other primers, which didn't work. So if you're concerned at all, use a restoration primer.
Okay, and that would be latex as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, it's all latex, which makes it really nice. It doesn't smell as much, and you clean up with water.
Great. I like that part.
Yeah, I understand that.
Well, it sounds like a great project, Georgia, and I guarantee you it's a tremendous before and after picture, and you'll probably wish you did it years ago because it just makes it cleaner and brighter and, of course, more of a modern look. So I think you'll be happy with it.
Well, I thank you for your advice. I mean, I'm looking forward to the project. I know it's going to be a lot of work, but I'm looking forward to it.
That's right. Look forward to it. Take your time and have fun with it. And thanks so much for being with us here on the Today's Homeowner Radio Show.
Well, thank you.
Another thing that we wanted to share with you a few tips on dealing with some things outside your home, weeds that are finding their way up. In many parts of the country, you're already seeing a lot of weeds showing up. And if you own a home and you have a lawn, you're likely no stranger to weeds. So no matter how much you pamper your lawn, at some point, you'll have to deal with these things. In fact, maybe they should rewrite that saying that about things that are constant to include death, taxes, and crabgrass. Maybe that might be a thing to do. But there is hope because the experts say the best way to control weeds is to have a very healthy grass. And many of the weeds will disappear on your own. So if your soil and lawn are really in poor shape, then it may take years to transform it, but you should see some improvement each and every season. Joe, how about some tips of some of the things that homeowners should try right now?
Okay, well, first, we often say how important it is to test the soil, and that you need to do, and do it in the front yard, the backyard, the side yard, and do it at least yearly, because you can't add the right amendments if you don't know what the soil needs. So do a soil test first. Then be sure the grass has room to grow by running a core aerator across the lawn. That will loosen up compacted soil and allow room for roots to grow and water to get in and nutrients and oxygen. And you can rent an aerator. And if you talk to your neighbors, maybe you can split the cost of an aerator, do 2 or 3 lawns, and it really drives down the price of the rental.
Yes, good idea.
When watering is required, do it the correct way. Frequent waterings don't encourage roots to grow deep. So water less frequently for longer periods of time. That's a good trick. And also, finally, mow with the grass in mind. In other words, mowing more frequently requires extra effort on your part, but it's healthier for the lawn. And never remove more than 1/3 of a blade of grass. So if it's 3 inches high, don't cut off more than an inch, because you don't want to cut it so it struggles to grow. You want to cut it just enough to keep it at that proper length.
Yeah, there's some great tips there. So that's just exactly what you want, to keep those weeds at bay. Now, we'll have some more tips for you on eliminating weeds around your house. These tips brought to you by Exmark, the official mowers of the backyard life. And for more great ideas and a little inspiration for your outdoors, visit exmark.com/backyard. Some great partner there, and give you an opportunity to try a number of things that you have outside the house. But weeds are inevitable, but we know you just have to, you always have to like declare war on it and
Right.
just start fighting every day, and then you win, and then your yard looks great when you have those summer get-togethers.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of that's really important. And we always try to stress a number of things that don't require a lot of the harsh chemicals. There's so many people that are really against the harsh chemicals these days.
Yeah, and there's no reason to use harsh chemicals or pesticides that are killing everything. And one thing I forgot to mention, when you use a core aerator, if you have a sprinkler system in your grass, be very careful. You don't want to be punching holes through all that tubing. Sometimes it's low enough that it's not an issue, but I just wanted to make sure people are aware of that, because that could, that would be a mess if you want to puncturing all those lines.
Right, and that's a good idea, too, to get some of the little flags that are available from the home center, or just little small wire flags that you can put in and mark all of your sprinkler heads. Just
Right.
manually run your irrigation system, mark those heads while you're at it, make sure that they're adjusted and doing the job that they need to be doing while you're at it.
That's a good job
That
for
can
the
make a big
kids.
difference.
We're talking about kids.
Yeah,
Let them run
another good
around with
job
the
for the
flags
kids.
as the sprinklers are going
That's right.
off.
Flag girl, flag boy, there you go. That's another good one. great outside project is getting that deck ready for all of the spring and summer get-togethers that you will probably want to have. And Mark from Michigan is right in the middle of a decision there. Mark, welcome to the show, and tell us what's going on with this deck you're thinking about.
Well, hello, Danny, you sweet-talking, all-knowing Southern gentleman. I'm excited to talk shop with you today.
Good.
So I'm trying to decide if I want composite decking around on a little deck area around an above-ground pool. But in some of the research I read, that it fades. And I've not seen that from some people that had it, but wondered what your thoughts were on it, if it got hot, and would the chlorine water bother it?
Okay. Well, all valid concerns and things that have happened in the past. I think they've done a lot to advance the reduction of, fading. They don't stay looking brand new the whole time, but a year or two down the road, they really still look pretty good because of that color being all the way through most of the composite decking. So I don't think that's much of a concern. The heat factor is something that a lot of people complain about. If it's right out in the sun, it does get hotter than wood, and that's something you have to think about. But the thing that people get down to on the decision the most is the difference in cost, because it is significantly more expensive than treated wood. And of course, treated wood requires more maintenance. So boy, it's that situation where you draw the line down the middle of the page, pros and cons, and you just have to kind of weigh it out. But most of the time it's that, writing that check that kind of makes people go over to the pressure treated side a lot of times.
Yeah, do you know if there's any restrictions as to how far above the ground you can put it?
No, I don't think there is. Joe, do you know anything on that? Because I know that on some of the composite decks, they actually allow you to put them on the ground and even glue them right to concrete a lot of times. Do you know any other regulations on that?
Yeah, Mark, it depends on the decking itself, the composite decking. There were some. I think Timber Tech was a company. They may have changed their product, but it couldn't be within, I think, 6 or 8 inches of the ground. If it was too close to the ground, it got affected by moisture. But as far as how high, you're going to be going around a pool, so you're going to be plenty high up off the ground, 3 or 4 feet off the ground.
No, it's an above ground pool, but it's going to be on the ground.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, most decking, especially the newer composite deckings, can be placed relatively close to the ground. And if fading is a concern, if that's your main concern, well, nothing will fade more or more quickly than wood, stained wood. So even if the composite's going to fade, it's going to fade a lot less than wood, stained wood. And when you go looking for a composite, you'll see a relatively new product, been out a couple of years, called cap stock composites, which is just original composite decking, but it's wrapped in a plastic covering around both top and bottom and the edges, not the ends, but the edges. And that will fade less. It's more expensive and it looks much more like wood. That's why people prefer it. And that will fade less than certainly the original composite decking, like the very first versions of Trex or a Veranda or something like that. So again, if fading's a concern, wood would certainly fade more quickly than the composites.
But you could redo the wood. You can't really do anything on top of a composite, can you?
No.
If it starts to fade?
That's correct.
That's exactly right. There's not much you can do. There are some ways that you can clean it thoroughly. They have composite decking cleaner now that will help revitalize it just a little bit, but not like putting a stain or a coating on it. That would not be allowed.
Yeah. Well, that points me more in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, I think if you'll price out both of them and just look at it, I'm not saying that you wouldn't want to have the composite because of the extra money, because you do have to think you're going to be spending money to maintain the treated deck over the years. But that'll help you kind of judge it right there and be able to make the decision. It's a tough one. We can't tell you one way or the other, but we can just tell you the pros and cons a little bit.
Mark, one other point, since it's going to be near a pool, is wood's going to be splintering and the composite won't. So if you have a lot of little kids running around, that might be a concern as well.
Okay, a lot of good stuff to think about, guys, as usual.
All right, Mark. Well, thanks so much for being with us. If we can help you any other way, you know what to do.
All right, thank you so much.
Hey, you got some valuable space you may have right below your house there if you have a basement or basement area that you can utilize. And, it's very useful whether it's finished or not. You also know that the access can be a little difficult if the basement doesn't have a separate entrance. So adding a basement door is a big benefit because it gives you direct access in and out of the basement without additional traffic through upstairs rooms. That means a more direct pathway for bulky household items like furniture, bicycles, or home appliances.
And there are two main types of basement doors, those that fit areas with a level foundation and those with sloped masonry walls. And you can also find them in a variety of sizes. But you want to look for a basement door with weather-tight construction and engineered lift assist, which helps you open that door, and also so the door doesn't slam close, which is a problem with the older metal doors. They get rusty and the hinges get creaky and you can hardly open them. And then when they close, they slam shut. So make sure you get one with weather-tight construction and lift assist. And many of these doors are made of steel and have a factory-applied powder coat finish in a variety of standard colors. And that allows you to choose a color that complements the exterior house. That's the reason it comes in so many different colors. And some basement doors are made of high-density polyethylene and designed to look like a wood plank door. And that's a really nice look, but it's also corrosion resistant. So if you live anywhere near the ocean, in any coastal area, you definitely want to look into these high-density polyethylene doors.
Now, to complete your entryway, there's also accessories for these doors like foundation plates, stair stringers, weather stripping kits, and keyed lock kits, which make it a lot easier to unlock the door from the outside. Whatever type you choose, start by measuring the areaway, the width, the length, and the height so you can select the right door. Now, these tips are brought to you by Bilco, the leader in basement access products. And to learn how to get more out of your basement, drop by Bilco.com. That's some valuable space under there, but you do need that proper access. And if you develop it into a living area, then that egress is extremely important to comply with codes and to keep your family nice and safe. We have a caller on the line right now that's at war with her weeds. Kate is in New York. Tell us all about the challenges that you have there, Kate.
There are several spots on my lawn that are overgrown with weeds. I've tried pulling them out, and they just grow back. Is there a way to kill weeds without using toxic chemicals? I don't want to pollute the groundwater or harm any birds or bees. And also, what can I put between the stones in my garden path to keep weeds from growing? There's play sand between there now.
Okay. Well, there's several alternatives, and I'm all for, after you hear so much about problems with a lot of the pesticides and chemicals and so forth that people's used over the years. A lot of people are looking for alternatives on that. I'll tell you something that my daughter Chelsea does in her driveway. She has a driveway that's gravel, and of course you're going to have those weeds popping up here and there. She has found an old tea kettle, the kind that whistles when it's ready, and she boils water, gets that hot water there, and pours it directly on the plants, and they die immediately. And then she can come and pluck it out the next day. So just pure boiling water is great when you have, weeds that are isolated like that. Now, but when you're talking about your yard and, you don't want to do that with your grass. Joe, what was that solution that was so popular that you mentioned on the radio show a couple years ago that everybody kept emailing us wanting to get that? Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, that's right. Kate, I'd shared a simple solution, and here's the recipe. You get a plant mister, like a little spray plant mixer, and what you put in is a half a cup of Epsom salt, 1 quart of white vinegar, distilled white vinegar, then a few squirts of Dawn liquid dishwashing detergent, like just regular liquid. Dawn works really well. And you mix it well, and you spray it onto the weeds. And the Epsom salt and the vinegar absolutely kills the weeds. Within the next day, you'll notice the difference. But the reason you add the detergent, the Dawn liquid detergent, is it helps the solution stick to the leaves. And that's what you want to happen. You want it to stick to the leaves and it'll work longer. And obviously, you don't want to do this either right after it's rained or if it's going to be raining because it'll wash it off the weeds. The boiling water works, but it's a lot of boiling water. The nice thing about this plant mister, and you can even use, if you have a lot of weeds, you can use like a little pump-up sprayer, like a 3-gallon or 5-gallon. So I think that would work. Do you have, and then you had a question about what do you have, a stone path and there's like sand in between and weeds are growing up? Is that it?
Yeah. You weed it and it pulls out all the sand between the stones.
Oh, right. Yeah. When you pull out the weeds. Well, I would pull out all the weeds, rake out all that sand, and put in polymeric sand. Are you familiar with what polymeric sand is?
No.
It's basically sand that has a polymer in it, and you spread it out just like regular sand. Then you mist it with water, and the polymer almost acts like a glue, and it hardens up. Now it's not harden up like cement or mortar, but it hardens up enough that a heavy rain probably won't wash it up, but it'll also help keep the weeds from growing through. So that's what I would do. Remove whatever sand is there, dig down. You want to go down maybe an inch or so, and then fill it with this polymeric sand. And it's really important to mist it. Get it off the stones, but then mist it with water as soon as you fill all those joints.
Thank you so much. That's great.
Hey, our pleasure. We know these things work.
Thanks.
They certainly work really, really well. And get rid of all those weeds so that you can enjoy that outside, Kate.
Great.
Time for our Home Depot Best New Product of the Week, brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Laminate floors are popular with DIYers because the installation of them, they don't really require a lot of specialized skills or tools, but Pergo has made them even more attractive by making them waterproof with Pergo Outlast Plus. The laminate planks have an authentic wood look and feel, plus their surface defense protection offers strength and stability with superior dent, scratch, and stain resistance. Their spill protect technology keeps liquids on the surface so spills will not go down through and get underneath there. These floors are guaranteed not to wear through, stain, or fade, and maintenance is so easy. You just sweep and damp mop. That's all that's necessary to keep them nice and clean looking. For big messes, you can wet mop, and for the deepest clean without any harsh chemicals, you can even steam mop these floors. Plus, the planks have an attached underlayment to make installation even easier and increase comfort and reduce sound transmission to rooms below. So, for more information on this Pergo Outlast Plus waterproof vintage pewter oak laminate flooring, log on to HomeDepot.com. Boy, they knew that laminate floors were popular, and they continue to improve and improve on it. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, because when they first came out, there were many rooms you couldn't install it. Any place with any kind of moisture or dampness or certainly spills, but it looks like now you can put certainly this laminate floor any place in the house.
We're all ready for spring. Now's the time to get ready for spring projects with help from the Home Depot. Install a brand new faucet, lay down fresh new flooring, roll on a bright new coat of paint. Need to figure square footage or paint coverage? Our project calculators will do the math. Do it all from our app and get delivery right to your door. Download our mobile app to get started. Bring on spring with innovative help from the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Going to join Vicki right now in New Jersey. Vicki, I understand that you have tried to remove wallpaper in the past, and you just didn't have a lot of fun with it. Is that a true assumption?
Hi, Danny. Hi, Joe. Yes, that's exactly right. It is a very messy and labor-intensive job removing wallpaper. I have an older home, and lots of wallpaper has been removed over the years.
I wonder if they put up any wallpaper these days. I haven't talked to the old wallpaper hanger in a long time.
A friend of mine just told me the trend is going back to wallpapering, believe it or not. Yeah,
well.
I know.
That's interesting.
Hopefully they will, they're sizing the wall properly. Because if, you prime the wall and put wallpaper sizing on it, and then you put wallpaper on there, it helps the wallpaper stick to the wall, but it also helps it release when you want to do that. But so many times in older homes, especially if they're very old, that happens. But I understand that you want to explore if you can actually paint the wallpaper.
Yes, I have a larger bedroom upstairs, and I really don't want to have to take all that wallpaper down. So I was wondering, do you think you can paint over the wallpaper? I'm just a little nervous that the paint might peel off. What do you think?
Well, most of the time you can. It will be a little odd if it is a textured paper. So, if it is smooth, you would have a better chance at it. But I'll tell you what I would do as a sample. And this is one of the things you can do if you have any leftover paint there, is actually to go to an out-of-the-way area and just apply paint, maybe a 3-foot by 3-foot area. Make sure you're including one of the seams that you may see in the wallpaper, and just put it on there and leave it on there for one day. Usually, if there's any problem with it reacting, it'll react pretty quickly on turning loose, because sometimes the paint will penetrate the face of the wallpaper and cause the glue to turn loose, and or it'll buckle or have some bubbles on it or some kind of reaction that'll show you that it won't be successful. That way you're not spending a lot of money or time painting an entire room to have that happen to you the next day. That would be the first thing I would do. After that, then you can make sure that you wipe it down and clean it really well, and then go right over it with a roller and paintbrush and apply one coat over it. And then you'll want to look at those seams, because if the seams are still prominent after you put that first coat on, you may want to go over that with a little joint compound, with a 6-inch drywall knife, and just smooth those seams out a little bit, little sanding, then go ahead and complete the painting. But if the paint doesn't cause it to react, then you can paint it very successfully. We've done it many, many times.
Great. That's such a good suggestion. And what you're saying is try the paint first and then go check the seams. So in other words, the paint might cover the seams, and I wouldn't have to worry about that.
Right, because some paper's a lot thicker than others, and
right.
The thinner the paper, it'll hide the seams. But if you already see that it's pretty prominent, then you'll want to go ahead and do that. Joe, this is something that we've tackled many, many times on the show.
We have, and Vicki, the only thing I would add is, since this is older wallpaper, I'm sure it's paper. I'm sure it's paper as opposed to vinyl or something that'd be hard to penetrate. And after cleaning it, and you can clean it with like a TSP solution, trisodium phosphate, usually a half a cup into 2 gallons of water is plenty to wash down the walls, and then wipe the walls. After cleaning the walls with TSP, wipe them down with a damp towel just to remove any TSP residue, because if you don't, the paint won't stick. And then, and I agree with Danny, any loose seams, any loose corners, you want to make sure you address those before you start painting. If they're peeling loose, glue them back. But one of the most important steps before painting is priming, and you have to prime, unfortunately, with an oil-based primer sealer. Everyone wants to use latex, but you have to use oil-based, and the reason is water-based primer or water-based paint will soak through the paper and loosen that adhesive.
Right.
So first put on an oil-based primer, and then once that's on, then you can use a latex top coat of paint. Read the directions on the primer, making sure that you can top coat it with latex, but I would find one that you can, and then put on the latex top coat. But the oil-based primer is, because this is a big bedroom, and the last thing you want is to paint it all, and then suddenly, then it'll start peeling. Then you'll be back to where you didn't want to do, with a job you didn't want to do, which was peel off all that wallpaper. Right.
Okay. That's such good advice. Thank you.
A lot of times we recommend that you go to todayshomeowner.com for some additional information. And I would certainly encourage you to go right now to todayshomeowner.com/metal roofing. There you're going to find a lot of information and maybe even a little inspiration if you're considering a metal roof for your home. They're so popular, and they're become one of the best investments that you can make to really boost your home's value. So again, it's todayshomeowner.com/metal roofing, and that's brought to you with a partnership that we have with Metal Roofing Alliance. Right now, we're going to consider Joe Truini a genius in the simple solution category. So, so don't let me down after saying that, Joe. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll try not. Well, here's a quick and easy way to sift rocks, stones, clumps of grass, branches, anything from topsoil. If you're using topsoil, obviously you want to get it as clean as possible, but sometimes sifting it can be a little bit difficult. So here's an easy way to do it. What you want to do is get a roll, go to the home center and buy a roll of hardware cloth. And it comes in, hardware cloth, if you're not familiar, it's not cloth at all. It's wire with squares in it. You'll probably recognize it, and it's called hardware cloth. And it comes with either 1/2-inch square holes or 1/4-inch square holes. So you want the 1/4-inch, you want the slightly smaller one. Anyway, so you get this roll and use a pair of tin snips and cut it about 16 inches longer than the width of your wheelbarrow. All right, so 16 inches longer. This way it'll overlap 8 inches on each side. Then you're going to staple a 2x2, a piece of wood, 2x2 works great, handle on the opposite ends of the hardware cloth. And then you're going to drape it over your wheelbarrow. And if you just bend the wire, the cloth, it'll kind of form a little squared off shape, and it'll sit. And the wood, the 2x2s, just gives you something to hold on to and when you're putting it away, and it weighs it down a little bit. Anyway, with this on the wheelbarrow, then all I have to do is just shovel the soil onto the hardware cloth. And I usually, with a pair of leather gloves, just rub the soil lightly with your hand, and you'll see the soil will go right through. Everything else, little clumps will break up, and anything that's left will be just the rocks and the debris. And then you can pick it up and dump it into a barrel. I usually dump it in the woods, you dump it into a small bucket, and then you repeat it. And the soil that comes out underneath is beautiful. You can't imagine how clean and finely sifted it is. So that's the trick, using some hardware cloth draped over your wheelbarrow.
Well, I can envision that. That would be very easy, and certainly that's going to make your potted plants or whatever you're doing, do a lot better, since you don't have any of that other type of matter in there. Also, with the 2x2s on each side, be easy to launch that stuff right over the fence into the neighbor's
into
yard.
Your neighbor's property.
Look, where'd that come from? Look it up and everything. So, it doesn't hurt a thing. Now it's time for our podcast question of the week. This one comes from Pablo down in Florida. Hello, Danny, a long-time viewer and listener here. I really enjoy your show. I have a detached garage, and the exterior door has some wood rot on the side where the door closes. Any suggestions on how best to repair? Not sure if I want to cut out some of the wood and put any kind of wood filler or Bondo. Don't know if that will work or not. I have included some pictures and appreciate your advice. The pictures, we do have those, Pablo, and looking at this, you can certainly fill this with Bondo, but I'll tell you, the molding on the outside is so easy to replace. I think I would replace it. And then on the inside part there, Joe, it's kind of hard, even when you're sitting there physically looking at something like this, to really know how much rot you really have, because you got to get that screwdriver or chisel and start just getting to where it's back to some solid wood before you can really tell. But what do you think on that? Do you think it would be successful with well, first of all, Bondo or wood filler is not a permanent thing. It will buy you a few years maybe, but you think this is too far gone to make that work?
That's the first thing I thought when I saw Pablo's photographs, is that he's talking about the very bottom of the side jambs on either side of the door, and the part that usually rots, of course, because it's sitting closest to the ground in the water. And it's such extensive damage. He has, looks like the damage goes all the way through the jamb, and it's up maybe 5 or 6 inches. I think he has to cut it out. If it was in the surface and the rot didn't go all the way through, you could patch it with some Bondo or exterior filler, but I think he's got to cut it out. So mark a nice square line up, and you want to go, at least 2 or 3 inches above the damaged area. Poke around with an awl or with a screwdriver and make sure you're hitting solid wood and cut it. And it doesn't matter how high up you go. If you have to go up a foot or 2, even, probably not that high, but if you have to go up a foot, just cut it out. And then replace it, but not with wood. Get a piece of PVC trim board. It's sold as AZEK, AZEK, or Home Depot has a store brand called Veranda. It's basically the same stuff. It's cellular PVC, 3/4 inch thick plastic, for lack of a better term. And just cut that and put that in there. And that, then that's it. Go in the house. You don't have to ever worry about it rotting.
That's right. It is easy to use, too. Any of the cellular PVC, you can cut it just like wood, nail it like wood, glue it, whatever you want. Works really, really well. So that should take care of it. If you can go ahead and do it to that extent, Pablo, you won't have to worry about it again. Hey, we want to hear from you. If you'd like to send us a question to be featured here on the Today's Homeowner podcast, very easy. All you have to do is go to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Hey, thanks so much for being with us each and every week. Thanks for those wonderful reviews, and we look forward to providing you more great information next week. I'm Danny Lepford, along with Joe Truini. Thanks for listening to this week's Today's Homeowner Podcast.